Whenever a new update to .NET, Visual Studio, or C# comes out, you should update your system to the latest version. Even if you don't use the newer version of .NET, updating will provide you additional features and fixes for your current way of doing things. Plus, the different versions of .NET can install side by side without causing problems. In this video, we're going to see how to update Visual Studio, C#, and .NET all at one time. Now, for most of my training, I work to give you an in-depth perspective on technology. But sometimes you just need the quick answer to the question, how do I do this? That's why I created this 10-minute training series. So this is what you see when you open up Visual Studio. Now, for me, it's zoomed in a bit compared to what you have, probably because I have the larger font size for screen. So in the lower right-hand corner here is a continue without code. That's what we're going to do. You don't have to open a project or clone a project or create a new project in order to get to the full Visual Studio. Just say continue without code. That will open up this window. By the way, if you ever get back to it, there's this icon right up here. You click that, and there you go. You're back to the start. But what this allows us to do is to update Visual Studio or check if there's updates to Visual Studio without having to open a project. Now, in the lower right-hand corner, I have this little red icon. I click this. You'll notice it adds notification tab that says, hey, there's a new version of Visual Studio. 17.12.0 is now available. Now, you could update on close right here, but maybe you accidentally got rid of that notification. Oh no, how do you get it back? Don't worry, we're going to, okay? So you don't have to worry about, by the way, if you click on this bell icon, it adds the tab for notifications. You click on the bell icon again, the tab goes away, which is really nice. So if you come here to help and you go to check for updates, this is going to bring up the Visual Studio installer. This will do a similar thing to what that notification will allow us to do. So here it says, hey, you got a new version of Visual Studio that you can update. And this will allow you to update right from Visual Studio. And then once it's done, you can reload Visual Studio. So you could hit update and be done, but there's another way of doing this. Let's close all of this out. And I'm going to search for the Visual Studio installer, which, sorry, it's on the other screen. I'll bring it over. This shows us what I have installed. This is going to be installed on your machine if you have Visual Studio installed. And if you don't have Visual Studio installed, you can still install the Visual Studio installer, which doesn't do the whole thing, just the bit you need to bring down new installations. So here I can say update. I can also go to available and install the preview version should I want the preview version of Visual Studio as well, which, by the way, as of the time of recording, is already on 17.13.0 Preview 1. There's new things coming out all the time. But for now, we're going to stick with the latest version that is ready to go prime time, which is 17.12.0. As of the time of recording, we hit update. Now it's going to give you a UAC prompt saying, hey, I got to elevate permissions. And once it does, it's going to download and install at the same time. So you got a ways to go. I'm going to pause the video. We'll come back to this. Once it's done, we have more to talk about. Once the installation is complete, you'll get a screen like this, and you can launch Visual Studio. So in doing so, you're going to get the newest version of Visual Studio, but you'll also get the newest version of .NET, and you'll get the newest version of C#, which is kind of bundled together. So what does that mean for you? Well, if you go to a new project here, and you go to, let's choose just a console app for now. And we're going to say new console app. Let's just choose that one for now. You can see that, yes, .NET 8, because that's my default, because that's the last thing I did. But we also now have .NET 9 we can use. And yes, this is a side-by-side installation, meaning that I can run with .NET 8 still. I can still work with .NET 8. I can still use .NET 8 or even .NET 6 or .NET 7. But I also have .NET 9 installed. So now you may ask the question, well, Tim, you said .NET 7 or 6, but you don't have those installed. And that's correct. But you can install those if you would like. Now, they're out of support at this point. Right now, as I'm recording this video, we've got support for .NET 8 and .NET 9. .NET 7 is out of support. So we have .NET 8 support for another 2 years. So we'll have .NET 10 come out, and then .NET 11. When .NET 11 comes out, then we no longer have support for .NET 8. We always have a year after the next LTS or long-term support version comes out. So I'll do another video on this, but just to be very clear, this is standard term or STS support, .NET 9. It is still fully supported. It's still production ready. There is no difference in quality, just to be clear. So the difference is just how long it's going to be supported for. That's it. So there is a production ready .NET version. Okay, so that's one way to update, and that's kind of the easy way if you're using Visual Studio, because of the fact that when you update everything. So it's not like you have to say, okay, now I've got .NET update, now you need to update Visual Studio. You just do Visual Studio and it updates everything you need with the latest information. So that's one way of doing it. If you want to do it by yourself, manually, for instance, if you're on a Mac or Linux, or you're doing things with just a command line, you're not worrying about an IDE like Visual Studio, you can go to .NET, .microsoft.com, and go to the download section. They'll find this page, which will change as the different versions of .NET come out. So you can, keep this bookmarked and then come back to it for the latest version. When .NET 10 comes out or 11 comes out, it'll still be here. But right now, you got .NET 9 is the latest version, standard term support. Yes, that's recommended. And you can click here because that's it. It's recognizing my system and says, hey, looks like you're a 64-bit machine on Windows, therefore install that version. But you can say, hey, give me all the .NET 9 versions and look here for all the different types of versions you would like to. If you're going to build something, you want the SDK or Software Development Kit, which will give you all the tools for building .NET and running .NET and working with and debugging .NET, as opposed to just the runtime for running .NET. Okay, so notice we have the .NET 9, but there's also preview versions that you don't want to install. That's not what you're looking for. If you're looking for more options, you can go to the downloads page and go to all .NET versions here. And notice that these are the supported versions, .NET 9 and .NET 8, but out of support versions, you can download previous versions all the way through .NET Core 1.0. I don't recommend it, but you can. So notice we have when was this supported through? .NET 6 just ended support November 12th, 2024. So it's, it expired most recently because of the fact that .NET 9 came out, which is 3 years after .NET 6 was released. So we have another LTS version, which is .NET 8. So you had 1 year after .NET 8 came out to go to .NET 8 from .NET 6. All that being said, you can install the latest version of .NET directly if you want to. You do not have to, though, if you've updated Visual Studio. If you update Visual Studio, it takes care of downloading the SDK for you. Just to be clear on how that works. Okay, so that's how you update Visual Studio. That's how you update C#. That's how you update .NET, all in one fell swoop. Is just update Visual Studio and you're good to go. All right, and there's different ways of doing that. Thanks for watching, and as always, I am Tim Corey.